All right, guys. So today we're diving into a topic that comes up at the end of pretty much every year. And that is, should you start your fitness journey now heading into the holidays, or should you wait until January when life finally slows down again? We've got two sides. We've got team start now, and then we've also got team January. Both sides actually make sense depending on the person. And that's why we kind of wanted to break it down. On one hand, we understand that December is very busy. There's a lot of parties, travel, baked goods, Christmas, New Year's, and it can feel pretty tough to stay on track. And on the other hand, there's always something going on, whether that's birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, vacations, long weekends, playoffs, the list goes on. So what we're going to do is we're going to kick it off with one side, and then the other side will give their counter argument. And at the end of it, you guys can make a decision what time of the year is going to work best for you to start your fitness journey. All right, you guys ready?
Ready. I will kick it off. Team start now because ultimately there is never a perfect time to start, and life just always throws us curveballs. And the holidays can also be a time where a lot of people have a lot of fear surrounding the holidays. So it can be a time where there is so much value to have support, to be able to learn how to navigate those times in a way that does feel aligned. And we want to be able to jump in and start making those changes, even if it doesn't feel like the perfect time, because whatever we can do does have value. And being able to have support to build frameworks and strategies as we navigate the holidays, we're also starting to lay that foundation in terms of our ability to adapt and to be resilient while moving through times that are more dynamic.
100%. I totally agree with you, Emily. I am definitely team start now because there is never a perfect time. There's always going to be things going on, and figuring out how to navigate your health and fitness through the chaos is just going to mean that once things do slow down, like socially with things going on, it's going to be such smooth sailing for the average person. I had one thought going into this that I think is so prevalent for people who are at the beginning of their fitness journeys. And that is the anxiety around going to the gym in and of itself, like getting into a new gym, starting your fitness journey, figuring out where the workout equipment is that you want to use and things like that. If you do that in January, you are doing that with every single other resolutioner that is starting at that time of the year. So not only are you in a new gym environment, you haven't maybe been into the gym for a while, like it's all new to you. So you're figuring out the layout, how to perform the exercises, how to use the equipment, and then you're battling the fact that the gym is now crowded with people who are also starting, but you get that gym anxiety because you don't know what's going on in the background for those people. And I think that a lot of us can assume that everyone knows what they're doing. And then you just feel anxious. You feel like more people are looking at you because there's more eyes. Whereas if you start in December, you get to take advantage of the fact that the gyms are quieter. People are busy. You get to be like the silent assassin, getting ahead of your fitness journey before everybody else so that you have that confidence, you have the lay of the land in the gym before all the resolutioners come in, and you're kind of just able to blinders on, clock them out because you've been in there figuring it out before them. And I don't think a lot of people think about that fact. So get ahead of everybody else, get the progress, but also build up that confidence logistically as well for yourself.
Okay, hi. Oh,
No, go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm team start in January. Like from a sense of what Carly just said, I personally think there's strength in numbers sometimes. So if you're maybe a little nervous about starting your gym experience and you don't mind the thought of going in with a bunch of other new people who might be nervous, it can feel a little bit less intimidating, knowing that at least not everybody's staring at you, the one new person walking in November, December. So that's just my thought on that topic. I don't know if anybody else agrees.
I agree. I actually love vibing off of the gym environment. I actually think that it gives me motivation to actually stay consistent and to train harder. So I kind of look forward to the energy that other people give off in the gym. But I also wanted to say I'm team January. I actually think that January is a better time to start than going into the holidays because we've got Thanksgiving coming up, then we've got Christmas, we've got, Boxing Day, we've got New Year's Eve, we've got New Year's. So it's a really busy time of year. And I think most people are already thinking about starting their fitness journey in the new year just because they know that November and December are the busiest time of year. You've got, all those holidays, the Christmas parties, staff parties, lots of Christmas baking going on, uh, relatives coming to visit, kids are home from school. So it's like you don't really have that structure. And if you start your fitness journey now, within a few weeks, it's all going to kind of unravel itself because you've got all these unknowns coming your way. And it's really hard to just build that consistency when all these things are happening. So I think it can really backfire on someone's confidence when they just start something, they're trying to get the hang of it. And then, less than a month later, it's like, well, how am I going to deal with all these things that are coming my way? Whereas if you just start in January, your environment is already working with you. Everybody wants to get in shape, be healthier in the new year. So instead of fighting your environment, work with your environment in the new year when times are a little bit slower, kids are back in school, everybody is on the same journey together. And I think you can start building momentum a lot easier than if you start now going to the holiday season.
Yeah, I think that some people do really well with being like thrown to the wolves, but I also feel like a lot of people don't, right? I feel like some people thrive under pressure. So like starting now, like in December, like around the holidays, I can see the argument on how it could be beneficial, but I'm definitely team January because I feel like it can also set people up for a lot of failure in a sense because not everyone works well under pressure, right? Some people crumble. And a lot of people that are starting off their health and fitness journeys that could be looking to start around the holidays, they might actually feel more discouraged and more confused from that pressure instead of having their like environment be supportive, like you said.
Personally, I have two arguments for I'm team start now. So I would say for team start now, one of the biggest probably mindset barriers that I'm sure many of us coaches can attest to is when people are struggling with the all or nothing mindset. So if you were to start now, you get to show yourself that like in the grand scheme of things, I always tell my clients, like, let's say you have, a few Christmas dinners yourself with your partner, maybe a few work functions, maybe a friend's miss. That might be like 6 or 7 meals. And if you think about how many meals you eat throughout the Christmas or like the holiday season, it really isn't going to make or break anything. And when you're working with a coach or just starting out in your health and fitness journey, like you can develop tools to navigate those holiday meals so that in the future, because there's always going to be celebrations, birthdays, things like that outside of the holiday season, you're going to feel more confident with navigating those meals. And you're going to show yourself that like a few of those meals that are off plan are not going to make or break anything. And you are building up momentum. I'm sure that all of us can attest to the fact that like it takes a few weeks of getting into habits in order to actually get good at them because they're all skill sets. Tracking your food, going to the gym, paying attention to your steps, water, all of those different things that make up your health and fitness journey are not things that you're going to be good at on week one, maybe not even week two. Sometimes it can take like 4 to 6 weeks. So if you're to start now, you're already building up momentum. Your body has time to settle into whatever goal you were looking to achieve. And then you're probably already seeing progress by January 1st when a lot of people are starting out on their day one.
Does Team Now think that there's a better time to start or worse times to start? Like, do you think there's a differentiation? Like, obviously, I agree, there's no perfect time to start, but are there better and worse times?
I don't think so. I personally think that it's all in managing your expectations around what it's going to look like when you are starting. So sure, the environment of January with less social functions and perhaps like just within your family, there's less things going on as well, might support that. But if you have realistic expectations of what you're going to achieve by starting in December, you'll be better off by January by having started early. And I think that that kind of plays for any season of life that you could argue. Like for some people, summertime is really difficult for them to manage through that. They have a hard time wanting to start a program in summer. But again, if you have realistic expectations, you're going to be set up for success and not kind of take a step back by not having started then.
I kind of have a counter argument. So if starting now is better, there's no perfect time to start. So starting now is better than starting in January. Would you say that starting at a time like December 22nd, which is the Monday going into Christmas, is a better time to start than January 5th, which is the first Monday of January?
Hell yeah. Just do it. Just start. You don't have to be perfect. That's the thing, is it takes you away from that all or nothing mindset, and kind of piggybacking off of what Carly said, like just having realistic expectations. Like, sure, you may not be able to get to the gym 5 times during December 22nd when you're celebrating with your family and whatnot. But if you have realistic expectations of maybe you go once, maybe you focus on your water that week, maybe you get out for some steps, like at least you're still trying, at least you're building up momentum and paying attention to these things. I feel like we just create so many like conditions in our head, which kind of goes with this conversation. And it just doesn't always need to be like that.
I feel like most people don't have the realistic expectation though. Like I feel like that's where we come in, and that's where we come in and try to like teach the realistic expectation. So instead of trying to, I guess, like convince people of that, why don't we just work with how their psychology is working and saying, okay, well, like January makes way more sense. As a coach, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I agree. That does make more sense for you to build momentum and pick up progress during that time, rather than starting now where you already have this preconceived idea that like there's no point, like it's not going to work out. And so that's why I think January might make more sense.
See, I think you want to try to just remove friction when you're first starting out. Because like I know that starting up your fitness journey or getting back on the horse is probably the hardest part of your fitness journey. It's just getting started. And I think removing friction from that by starting in the new year, again, Team January, starting in the new year where there's just less to worry about, less to think about, less to plan, less to work around. It just makes it easier to execute, build more consistency, and then build that confidence within yourself that, hey, I can do this, rather than maybe doing good all week. And then you come to that one Christmas dinner or whatever, and maybe you flounder a little bit, which is normal, but then you kind of feel like, oh, that week was for nothing. And then I feel like mentally for a lot of people, that would kind of deter them and make them lose confidence and lose a little bit of steam going into that very beginning phase. So I think it's better off. Yeah, you could be mindful throughout the December, but don't have big expectations of yourself. And I think if you really want to kick it off and do like try to just tackle everything, it'd be better to do it in January. It's just less to think about, less friction, and you can just take action a lot easier.
I think that there's a few different layers here, and I think it definitely depends. And just like Greg mentioned, those expectations are going to be a huge piece to it. And as we move through December and really the peak of the holidays, we want to be able to go into that with realistic expectations. And for most people, that is going to look like sustaining your progress. So in terms of, is there a better time to start? There can be times that are more leveraged to start. And again, this is going to be so layered. Even our mental load is a piece to that. If you don't have bandwidth to, be in this moment and to put some of those pieces into place, then that can be a barrier, and it can be a barrier to confidence, like feeling like you can't do it. But if the expectation, if you have a start date that was later in December, for example, is to feel good navigating those times, then it's something that could just be really synergistic to have that support moving through that. But again, those expectations are going to be a big piece to it. And for me and my clientele, I have a little bit of both. I have clients that are so happy they did start, even though they may have had some of that hesitancy of coming into the holidays. And now they feel like they're going to start January ahead, and they're really looking forward to having that support through the holiday season, because they know it's going to just continue to build that foundation for long-term success and their confidence for navigating times that are dynamic. But I also have clients that are going to start or restart in January where they want to be able to put both feet into it and to really put their focus there. And again, that mental load is a piece to it. They want to be able to show up and be present, and that's going to be what works best for them.
Yeah, I'm team now for a couple of reasons. I agree with like a lot of what the other team now players have said. I think that a big barrier, like one of the biggest barrier, is people's mindsets and people's excuses. And so at the end of the day, like saying that you're going to start in January, it's just another invisible boundary that's preventing you from just starting with your health and fitness journey. And a lot of people, they do have that perfectionist mindset. They have that all or nothing mentality. I think that actually starting in December can be really good because it's going to show people that they can start to layer habits and routines instead of thinking that they need to go from 0 to 100. We're able to start with, okay, like let's start with our water, let's start with our steps, let's start with a couple of workouts a week instead of people thinking they have to do 5 to 6 workouts a week. And then if you are working with a coach one-on-one, that coach is going to be there to support you through, hey coach, listen, I have a staff dinner on Friday. How do I navigate this week and go to this dinner to ensure that I'm still successful? And a good coach is going to set you up for success so that you're going to this dinner and you're understanding, okay, I'm going to utilize the hand portion method. I'm going to front load my day with protein and fiber and hydration. I'm going to have some alcohol, but this is what I'm going to have because I know that it's a bit of a better choice. Ultimately, being able to navigate those events is going to set you up for so much success. And the holidays come around every year. One thing that I really like to celebrate with my clients who work with me longer term is, okay, how did your actions and behaviors this Christmas vary from last Christmas? Because not a lot of people think about that long-term progress, right? So if I'm able to work with a client and they're like, you know what, last Christmas, like I had that start January mindset. I ate so much food in December. I drank so much alcohol. I was so sedentary because I was just waiting until January. I was waiting for, to start my diet. I was waiting to go hard. They actually go completely overboard because in their mind, they have that scarcity mindset of I'm never going to be able to enjoy the holidays again. And then if I have a client who's like, yeah, last year I went completely overboard. This Christmas, I felt so good. I felt so in control. I felt like I was able to enjoy like my grandma's fruit cake without eating the whole thing. Fruit cake is disgusting. I was able to,
I think we can all
enjoy.
agree on that one.
Yeah.
No fruit team, no fruit cake.
What is a Christmas dessert? No, I don't know.
Gingerbread?
Yeah.
Gingerbread house.
Yeah. But like if you're able how to navigate those events, like that's a lifelong skill that's going to carry with you forever. So you can either choose to learn them over the holidays, or you can start in January and wait 12 months to learn.
I want to piggyback with a question for the Team January people based off of what Clara just said, because I fully agree with that. So in my opinion, being like a Team Now person, I think that putting it off to January is like a permissive way of exactly what Clara said. I'm gonna eat all the food, have all the drinks, because when my fitness journey starts, those types of things aren't going to happen. And what typically ends up happening for most people is there ends up being like 3 to 5 pounds of unnecessary fat gain over the holidays, which just tacks on to the extra work that you have to do in January. And yes, fat gain, like body fat, you can gain it, you can lose it. It's just like cutting your hair, growing your hair, whatever. But it does end up being a little bit more work. So in your, even in your personal experience, or with clients, how frequently is it that someone puts it off to January and then is actually moderate and chill and balanced through December? And how often is it more so the flip side where we're permissive and we're just going to be a slug and eat all the things? Like even starting December 22nd, like that week between Christmas and New Year's, having some structure in that is kind of nice for people. Most people have no idea what's going on. So do you guys feel like it is permissive, or do you, in your experience, think that people actually keep their shit together through December, even though they're starting in January?
I'm going to take
their shit together. I mean, you go ahead, Anna. I'll talk after.
No, I mean, I feel like in a sense, I was kind of like going to say what Zach says, like, yes, it is a bit permissive, but also I think when we talk about starting now, almost everyone's brain probably as they're listening to this is jumping to fat loss, like being in a fat loss phase, getting leaner. Now, when I think about maybe just like starting in January, I'm specifically talking about a fat loss phase, whereas in December, if you're maybe it's not your first kick at the can of being on a program or caring about your health and fitness. Maybe you took last year off, maybe it was not your best year, whatever, man. But maybe you'd rather start in a maintenance phase or in a building phase. And in December, it's kind of a prime time to do that because, like Zach said, like maybe you struggle with getting in your food, and this is a great time of year. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to get leaner, maybe you're actually going to work on eating more protein or having some boundaries of food. So if you're thinking about starting a fat loss phase in January, yes, I think that the starting January 1st can be a bit permissive to maybe some of those old habits, but also I am currently in a building phase for my bodybuilding goals specifically. And if I was to start cutting right now, that would literally be counteracting my personal goals. So I also think considering what the client wants long term can be helpful as long as they're not going off the rails, which sadly Zach already touched on.
I feel like everyone has good intentions, going into this time of year. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of people also just don't care. They don't care that they're going to put on that 3 to 5 pounds. They've been working hard all year. They finally got days off. They get to see the family. They got, mom's baking, grandma's baking, the good food coming around. And like, that's the sacrifice they're willing to make. And I think that trying to start in this time where there's so much temptation just feels, I hate to say it for most people. And again, it's definitely nuanced, but it feels almost pointless because it's just like, oh, I can understand someone's mindset of like, okay, I did good during the week, but then the weekend comes around, they have these dinners, and it feels like, oh, that whole week's worth of work was a waste of time because I had this dinner. And now it makes them have like a negative feeling about these dinners. And it also makes it feel harder to get going again the next week. So rather than just kind of almost suffering through the holidays, it's what I feel like it feels like for a lot of people when they first start, because they're having to make all these other like sacrifices and bargains with themselves. It's might as well just enjoy it and then start in January and then start picking up momentum, make it a lot easier to get started, make these choices a lot easier. And it gives you time to kind of build a little bit of groundwork and a little bit of consistency before you start coming up against these challenges like these dinners out and these parties and all these other things.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that too, Zach. Like, I also think that if somebody invests in a program and the coach is like, okay, well, let's just start now. This is the best time. There's never a perfect time. And they start and they're going through their week, but then all these things are popping up and they're like, well, like, how do I deal with this staff party that's happening on Friday? And then, oh, I have a Christmas party to go on Saturday. And it's like every single week in December, you've got something going on. And that's really preventing them from seeing any kind of progress. So they almost start to feel like I kind of wasted my money because like I can't even get through the week with all these things coming up. And I'm not doing that well because I am so new to this that I'm really struggling. I end up eating way more than I should have. I overindulged on these treats, and then I have to start back at square one on Monday. And then by the weekend, it's like happening to me again. Whereas if you just started in January, it's like, yeah, I have nothing going on for at least like the next 1 to 2 months. Like there's really nothing going on for holidays in January and even February. So if I have like these 4 to 8 weeks to just focus on the program itself and everybody around me is like wanting to do the same, then I'm able to build that momentum and then carry on those habits into the new year rather than struggling during the holidays, can't build any momentum, see no progress, and feel like I'm kind of wasting my money.
Now, I feel like we all know that that's not necessarily the case, right? But this is what everyone will feel, I think, going into these holidays. That's exactly what they feel. But us as coaches, we know, okay, like it's not like you're not making progress. Like we're laying some groundwork, we're building some foundation. But I think from the point of view of the actual person wanting to start, it just feels like such an uphill battle. And it feels like, what's the point? And then I feel like they can almost use December as like preparation for like setting their intentions for that January start. I feel like they almost get like anticipation for like they're okay, I'm almost excited now to like start in January because they give themselves like that extra time to like really I don't know, give themselves time to think about it and actually like mentally commit to it. rather than, trying, okay, I'm just going to start now and it's a whirlwind and you have all these things going on and it just feels hard. And then you finally feel like you can breathe again once January hits. It's like, well, fuck, I might as well just have started in January. I'm just trying to take on the mindset of someone who would be in that position anyway.
Yeah, I think that the nuance of the client itself is also really important. Like how Anna was kind of talking about, someone who's specifically wanting to see fat loss, and maybe the variables, excuse me, in their life are a little bit more flexible and easier to manage. Maybe they don't have children, they work a normal work week, like no more than 40 hours type of thing. That person is probably going to have a really straight shot at a fat loss phase, and maybe they really want to like level up their physique. Perhaps January would be a better option for them. That's the mindset that they want to look at it with. However, because our client load and client base is so vast, for me specifically, to argue that point is difficult because I have majority of my clients are like postpartum moms and people with like high-paced careers, things like that, where no matter what time of year it is, there's never going to be like a straight shot. They've got a young baby going through sleep regression. Like they're not going to be having good recovery. They're going to have birthday parties that they have to plan. Like there's always going to be these roadblocks that come up that isn't going to give them that straight shot. So January technically for them looks no different than December does, honestly. And by starting then and just working through that gives them, again, like that groundwork built up to layer those habits. I think for that type of client, it just makes sense to weather the storm because the storm is just going to be brewing the whole time. And that's for my client base specifically.
I feel like it's very easy for us to say start now because I feel like sometimes like we live in a bubble almost. Like as online coaches, like we're pretty blessed to like work on our own hours and stuff like that. But then to actually put ourselves in our client's shoes where, okay, they got 40-hour work weeks and then going into the holidays, they have to pick up their kids from school. Then they got in-laws, Christmas dinner, then they've got a friend's miss and they got all these things. And again, it's easy for us to say just start now because I feel like we generally have a little bit more time on our hands than the average person does. And we're lucky to be able to do that.
Tools and experience too.
Exactly. So I think it's very easy for us to say start now because again, we have the experience, we have a little bit more time, we have more resources available to us versus the person who is going into the holidays with a very busy like month. Whereas come January, again, like what Don was saying earlier, like kids are back in school. There's no more Christmas get-togethers. There's no more dinners. There's no more anything like that. There's no more barriers. I think it makes more sense for that person, for the average person. Okay, just wait till January rather than starting in the, for lack of a better word, shit show of it all.
I do agree like with what Carly said about how there's a lot of nuance between clients, right? Because if we're having like a return client who just like, wants to maybe go into a cut and they're like, I want to start in January, like I want to secure a spot. It's like, cool, like totally sounds good to me because like in my mind, I know that their December isn't going to be that bad because like they've worked with me before. They, I say to them, make sure that December is like a pretty, nice tame month. You don't need to go crazy. We're not going to do anything crazy come January. Whereas, yeah, like a person who has maybe had history of like fad dieting or, negative relations with food or exercise or things like that, saying that they're going to start in January, it does just perpetuate their all or nothing mindset.
They start their fat loss program with us like last week of November. They lose a couple pounds in the first 4 weeks, and then the scale doesn't change for the rest of December because they're having maybe 2 to 3 free meals throughout the week, but 70% of their nutrition is more or less being controlled. But it just means that we saw the scale do this, and then it kind of does this for the rest of December. I would argue that that is progress for someone who is the type of person that would normally see the scale go like this every single December. And that just comes back to what Clara was saying, how, when we're able to talk to clients about, last year when we were working together, when you started your program, whether that was December or January, like, how do you see your behavior has changed, this December versus last December, right? Again, maybe they were more flexible than they were, in September because it's the holidays, but they didn't see a spike on the scale. And as coaches, I think that we can all agree, like maintaining progress is a huge win and is progress in the face of like holiday functions, stress. Like that's always a big win as coaches that we celebrate regardless of what the client's goal is. So that's why I would argue again, like start your program at the end of November, start your program in December, because even if you're able to just maintain when you are the type of person who would binge, go balls to the wall, like, you know, become a slug all of December just so that you can have that all or nothing mindset. Again, I would argue that that is a really big win as a coach and for the client.
I'd like to argue that obviously, like, we know as coaches that like maintaining is great progress, especially during like busy seasons, holidays. But I don't think new clients like sign up or want to jump into a program in that phase, right? They want to make changes. They want to
maintain it all.
right? They don't want to be like, you know, they don't want to sit there and kind of like trickle through their first few weeks and not see any kind of like progress in what their like belief of what progress is at that time, right? Because it takes a while to build, you know, that mindset and to build those skills.
Yeah, I feel like it's tough because we know what the best practices are in reality, like objectively. But yeah, I feel like you always have to put yourself in the mind of that person. And sometimes like there's just things that people aren't willing to do when they first start out. And there's also things that like you can't throw everything at them at once. It seems like they need to like take it at their own pace. Something like, especially when starting out, it's a hard thing to commit to when you're first starting out. And I think even if that person knows that like, okay, I'm going to be able to like build better habits in December, I'm going to be, you know, making a little bit of progress and like maintaining it and building a foundation. It's like, well, I think for them, they're in their head, they're like, what's the point? Like, I'd rather just start and make progress right away in January and enjoy my holidays. And like, so while we know, okay, yes, it's better if you start now, um, you're going to be healthier, you're going to be in a better place by January. I think a lot of people when they're first starting out, they don't really care. They just want to see that fast immediate progress with very little sacrifice, at least in the beginning. And so I think it's important. Like I think it's just easier. Obviously, it's easier to start in January because you can avoid all of that, and not necessarily that's a good thing. But I think for a lot of people, it just makes more sense for them, and for them, it might be an easier, more successful start with just all these less pressures, less things to think about.
Yeah, I agree. Like at the end of the day, like maybe there isn't a perfect time to start, but when you start, like go all in. Like don't sell yourself short. If you are going into it with unrealistic expectations, you start that first week in November and think, I'm only gonna have one Christmas dinner and none of grandma's fruitcake. Like you automatically set your up with like self up like that. You're not really committing. Versus if you start in January and then someone invites you to their New Year's party the weekend after and you go and you fall back into that December mindset, like just whenever you do end up starting, really lock in and make it comfortable, make it frictionless, lean on your coach. But really, it's not about the time, it's about that promise that you're making to yourself. And some people prefer to do it now because, like Team Now said, it's never going to get that much easier in theory versus January, where like maybe it is easier for you. I don't know. Do you guys like, whether you're on Team Now or Team January, do you resonate with that?
Yeah, I would say just be willing to get uncomfortable because regardless of what your goals are, you're going to get uncomfortable. It's going to be difficult, especially if you are chasing fat loss, regardless if you start now or in January. Like fat loss is the hardest phase of your health and fitness journey. It's going to require you to get uncomfortable with tracking your food and developing self-awareness with that. You're going to be hitting a higher step goal. You're going to have to peel yourself off the couch during times that you don't want to. You're going to have to get up early in the morning if that's the only time that you can train in order to get your workouts in. Like you're going to have to do things that you may not want to do or that you don't feel like doing. So regardless of when you're looking to start, like just be willing to embrace that uncomfortable parts, like all of it, like mentally and physically, because there's going to be so much growth on the other side of it. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. So I agree with Anna.
Yeah, I think action above everything, right? Regardless of when you start, take action, take consistent action, and you'll be successful. But again, all of us know ourselves. And so if you know yourself and you kind of know that, okay, if you're already thinking to yourself, like, I'm probably gonna fuck up all December, even though I'm gonna try, you might be one person who maybe might be better off starting January. But if you're like, you know what, I think I can do it. absolutely go for it. But whoever you are, just commit to it. When you start, fully start, don't half-ass it, because that's what's really going to get you results. Half-assing won't get you anywhere. It might feel like it at first, but ultimately you're going to spin your tires. So commit to it wholeheartedly when you do. It doesn't matter necessarily when you start, but just fully commit.
Yeah. When you start, what you do matters way less than your commitment, your discipline, and your ability to just move forward with momentum. But obviously, a DIY body program is the place to start.
All right, guys. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Let us know what side you're on. Are you team start now, or are you guys team January? All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next one.